Ra Dha Swa Ami. Close your eyes and imagine an apple in your mind's eye. If holding a real apple feels like 5 out of 5, what score would you give the apple in your mind out of 5? Ask this question to different people and you will be surprised to see how much the answers vary. People lie on a spectrum. At one end is aphantasia, which is little to no voluntary mental imagery, and at the other end is hyperphantasia, which is extremely vivid, detailed, and often multi-sensory imagery. Back in 2010, an anonymous case known as patient MX unexpectedly lost the ability to form mental images after a medical procedure. Neurologist Dr. Adam Zeman and his team studied the case and later coined the term aphantasia in 2015. This word comes from Greek a, which means without, and phantasia, which means imagination or mental imagery. We recognize light through darkness, and we understand darkness because of light. Using this idea of contrast and the law of requisite variety, we designed a study to explore cognitive diversity. We created a multi-sensory imagination questionnaire. We analyzed an initial subset of 106 participants to examine the pedagogical angle of how mental imagery relates to the learning and examination system. To connect theology with cognitive science, a simple 3-axis model of the human person can be used. The x-axis represents the left-right orientation, the y-axis represents hierarchy and the levels of consciousness, and the z-axis represents the inward-outward depth, that is, concentration. So, the key synthesis is, Dhyan can be understood as disciplined attention across all 3 dimensions. The ability to form mental imagery could be one aspect of Dhyan. As a backdrop to this study, in Mishrit Bachan Part 1, Param Guru Maharaj Sahab gives a crisp definition. Khayal man ka swaroop hai aur tawajjuh surat ka swaroop hai aur veh khayal se pare hai. This would mean khayal is what appears in the mind, the thoughts, the inner sounds, that is, the observed. Whereas tawajjuh is the focused power of surat, that is, the observer. To summarize, the present study operates primarily at the level of khayal. Let us now look at the pedagogical perspective. The objective of learning is not limited to produce an informed mind. Rather, the real objective is to shape an integrated person. In that direction, education becomes a movement towards a higher human possibility, a species of Homo spiritualis. Let us try and understand what exams are. In the exam hall, focus and concentration sharpens, inner silence increases, and many even experience an altered sense of time. So an examination can be viewed as a spiritual-like micro-experience. A practical question: does that examination experience measure what the real world actually needs? As a theoretical exercise, we identified several general attributes that are required in real-world professions. Then on the need and supply sides, we marked the importance of the attribute with high, medium and low tags. The need side shows a total of 7 highs, whereas on the supply side, open book exams receive the highest score of 5 highs, followed by DHA having 4 highs, followed by closed book and MCQ exams receiving 2 highs each. This slide shows the survey questionnaire in 2 parts. First, the sensory imagery section measuring individual differences in inner experience. For auditory imagery, questions like replaying a familiar voice in the mind. For visual imagery, picturing an apple, mentally rotating it, zooming into text, recalling a face, etc. Second is the exam behavior section, linking imagery to exam functioning. For example, visual recall in closed book exams, remembering where information sits on a page, and visual recognition in MCQs. It also includes imagery limitation items, items on conceptual understanding, logic first problem solving, and 1 item on open book preference. This slide profiles 106 participants. Together, these distributions indicate that the data reflects a multi-generational and professionally varied group. The results of the study. The Apple test shows clear cognitive diversity. Participants are spread across all the 5 options. Option 1, 31%. Option 2, 49%. Option 3, 11.3%. Option 4, 3.7%. And option 5, 4.7%. So even with the same prompt, people report experiences ranging from highly vivid to almost no image. Second, the auditory imagery score histogram is concentrated in the higher range, suggesting most participants can generate reasonably vivid inner sounds with a small low score tail. Third, the visual imagery score shows an even stronger right shift as most participants fall in the higher visual imagery range, and the band chart reflects this with high 73.6%, medium 23.6%, and low 2.8%. Finally, the global imagery score, being the combined index, produces a smoother distribution that still remains largely high, summarizing that the sample is generally image-rich while still retaining meaningful variation. In this first image, we map visual imagery against visual exam recall, and 4 clear learner profiles appear. The larger group is high imagery with high visual recall, which is 45 participants, which is 42.9%. Then we see 2 equally sized groups of 23 participants, each 21.9%. One group has low imagery but still high recall, and the other has low imagery with low recall. In the second graph, we see that 66.7% prefer open book across the spectrum. Importantly, from a brief follow-up conversation with some high VIS participants, we learned that memorization without conceptual understanding is not scalable, and therefore these students preferred open book exams. The third graph shows lower imagery reduces visual recall, strongly increasing open book need. So the conclusions of this study are: there is diversity among students with regards to mental imagery. Also, within a person, there is diversity amongst the different senses. The findings indicate that closed book exams are not neutral with respect to individual differences in mental imagery. Also, students with vivid visual imagery gain a natural advantage as they can mentally reconstruct pages, diagrams, and layouts, enabling rapid retrieval of facts and formulae under time pressure. Students with weak or absent imagery can leverage meditational techniques to foster mental imagery. DEI's adoption of open book and DHA style assessments represents a forward-looking educational reform that reduces hidden bias linked to visual imagery and memory-heavy testing, and allows students with diverse cognitive profiles to demonstrate what they truly understand. In the words of Kabir Sahab, जो चलना राह नाजुक है, हमन सिर बोझ भारी क्या? When I have to walk a delicate path, why should I carry excessive load on my head? Ra, Dha, Swa, A, Mi.